want to see that the whole Kampala street is not full of Indians. It must be proper black.
It was a shock. We were not prepared for it. We didn't expect it. We didn't know what to do.
As a patriot, it was a good change.
I think what was behind his mind, he wanted some sense of security.
In his sleep on 3rd August 1972, General Idi Amin Dada had a dream. In the dream, Amin received a message ordering him to expel all Asians with British passports from Uganda. 4th August 1972, Amin made an announcement ordering all Asians to leave Uganda, and this had to be implemented within 90 days. Over 50,000 Asians left the country. Their departure left a very big vacuum in the economy of Uganda, so big that it caused scarcity of essential commodities. All the industries and plantations that had been established by the Asians were all run down, on top of arbitrary arrests, torture, and indiscriminate killings of innocent people. The people of Uganda went through untold suffering until 1979, when Idi Amin was overthrown. From 1979 to 1986, Uganda experienced political confusion. Within that period, government changed hands over 5 times. In 1986, the National Resistance Army and their political wing captured power, setting a new chapter of calm in the history of Uganda. The conducive political atmosphere created by the NRM enabled some Asians to return to the country and repossessed their businesses and opened new ones. They have since contributed immensely to the economy of Uganda, which had almost collapsed during Amin's economic war. Today, the economy is vibrant, from shortage to export. It all started with an unusual combined troop movement of the army and the military police camping at different strategic positions in and around Entebbe and Kampala city. The massing of troops made the population anxious and worried. Then came the announcement on the only state-owned radio, Radio Uganda, now Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. It was 25th January 1971 when Major General Idi Amin Dada declared himself the new president of Uganda after seizing power from President Milton Obote in what he called a bloodless coup d'etat. All this happened when President Milton Obote had traveled to Singapore to attend the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting.
I was in England, in Leeds, when Obote was overthrown. We had watched him give a speech in Singapore. Very moving speech at the Commonwealth conference, which was there. Yeah. The paper I had was moved to the east, moved to the left, moving to the left. And African students in Leeds all gathered in one hall, watching. We were watching him giving that speech. We were all clapping, and the Nigerians were jumping. That is our man. My colleagues in Leeds, they were saying, yeah, this is a man who can really help Africans and so on. So that was the following day he was overthrown. Now, what would you say?
The change of government was welcomed by loud drummings, dancing, and ululation by the population. Obote had become so unpopular, especially in central Uganda, due to the conflict he had with the Mengo establishment. As the news of the fall of Milton Obote continued to spread, celebrations continued to proliferate. Little did the population know that the worst was yet to come. The anticipated peace and freedom ushered by the new regime was to be short-lived. The reign of terror had just begun. Barely a year in office, Amin moved to purge his government of all the political rivals. He ordered for the extermination of the Acholi and Langese, whom he accused of supporting the deposed Obote government. It is believed that by 1972, over 5,000 Langese and Acholis had been executed.
The mass murder of selected tribes of Uganda by Amin, Langi, Acholi, Jopadola, Teso, and a few others from the west, particularly Bakiga. And he would pick them one by one, kill them. But the Langi and Acholis and the Jopadola from Tororo were massively massacred.
Army officers basically from northern Uganda who Obote had sent to train in Israel. They returned home, very innocent fellows, and they were taken to Bukedde barracks, which was called, I think, Simba barracks. Maria Mungu was given a mission to go and kill those young officers. The commanding officer at Bukedde, Kodabriga, when he was ordered, warned these young soldiers, keep aloof, don't saturate very much. Now some smelled the rat and they took off. And when Maria Mungu got to Bukedde barracks, he summoned those boys and he killed them. There were 31, I think, either 31. Killed them. The 4 had escaped. I was a witness. They tried to falsify, to burn them, whatnot. Very sad story, very sad. You kill me because of my tribe. These were basically Acholi land boys. That's the day I said this man called Amin should go.
From that house, para bookshop, one person. That man has never been found, seen up to now. He was called a Bong. The last house at the corner there, that one also Bongoi, has never been found. There was a man here called Kiria. That one also was abducted, never found. Then the last house there was a man called Eriao. That one also, up to now, not found. The first Peru season, there they took 2 people. There was the owner, he was running a shop, Stanley. That man also up to now. Then the DPC here was an Acholi man. When those people were arresting these people, he came to find out that it was also included.
Omulembe ogwongera gwe bakwata olina kufa emakindi nga bwe tutudde wano ne batoolawo 2 ne babatwala okusiibula nti munnange bw'obanga otuuse e Bulemeezi ku kyalo gundi bagambanga nti oli yagenda.
The regime got grimmer and grimmer. A lot more Ugandans were killed after the expulsions than before. You know, we don't even know today how many were killed. My father witnessed quite a lot in Makindi. People would come into the cell and they would stay there for 2 days, then they make friends, and then next day in the night they would be taken out, and they didn't use guns, they used a hammer, you know, and the bodies would be chucked here near Jinja.
People were being killed, firing squad were being done. Now, especially Acholi, Lango, they were really being punished. Even in a river Nile, they have been taking dead people there, crocodile has been eating people, and so on. They would take people from Moroto barracks, lorryfuls of them, bring them right up to Karuma. lioness dropped in the water. That thing was horrible. Sad indeed.
I remember some two people near Sebagala's home there, because that's our home area. Very, very old two men were killed by a soldier, very old, about 95 years or 90 years. They were just slaughtered.
Some of the stuff that I saw in the 90 days that we were supposed to leave the country, an 11-year-old shouldn't be seeing those type of things. You know, I had army take my friends away, and I never saw them again. I had people get killed in front of my eyes, you know, and that really affected me through my my growing up. Because of that, I had a lot of anger and resentment, and I carried that throughout my life. And if it wasn't for giving my heart to Lord Jesus, I don't know, I would have been in hell by now.
The purging continued. Next in line were the Asian communities. Idi Amin was a man of different colors. As the population was coming to terms with his tough administration, he declared the economic war, which he perceived from a dream. On 4th August 1972, Amin ordered for the expulsion of the Asians with British passports from Uganda, and this had to be implemented within not more than 90 days.
I want to see that the whole Kampala street is not full of Indians. It must be proper black, and administration in those shops is run by the Ugandans.
Idi Amin went to Moroto and said that when he was in Moroto, he had a dream. And the dream was telling him, you expel those Indians in 90 days.
Many theories have been put forward to what could have prompted Idi Amin to chase away the Indians.
As a matter of fact, the policy was to shift the economy from the hands of non-citizens to the hands of citizens. And that was a very right policy, because nowhere in this world people or leadership would like its economy to be dominated by the foreigners.
As a patriot, it was a good change. It was a very good change. But the way it was done,
I think what was behind his mind, he wanted some sense of security, so he could do what he wants to do to his fellow Africans. And he did it, unfortunately killed 250,000 people after we left.
It seems Idi Amin realized that the communities were segregated, the communities, Asians and Africans. And somehow he felt that by expelling an entire community, he could solve the problem overnight.
Then subsequently he went to Libya. Gaddafi got rid of all the foreigners, handed over the properties, to the local people. And thereafter his country was happy. But he got that inspiration that, well, he can do the same. He forgot the fact that Libya had large reserves of oil. Money was in abundance. There was no question of country starving to death without money. So he came and did the same thing, get rid of all the foreigners.
Way back between 1948 and 1952, there was some agitation when the Africans wanted to do some business similar to what the Indians were doing, to export cotton, to export coffee. Remember at that time, literally, only the Indians had a monopoly of exporting those produce, those commodities. So the Africans, led by people like Musazi, people like Bemba, unfortunately all these ones are gone, Bemba, wanted the Africans to participate in the export of coffee which they grew, even in the ginning, and there were some riots there which were actually based on that particular aspect.
According to the law, the law of the colonial masters before 1960, a black person was not supposed to build in town. And in 1950s, the King of Toro and his assembly made a resolution, approached the government of the Mzungu, said, why can't we also do what the Indians are doing? And the Mzungu answered, said, but where can you build? Because the law says it is only the white, not the black. So they said, if you want the black people to also to do the same business in town, then provide land. And the king had to surrender part of the land from the roundabout where there is a lion going west. That road is called Babia Road. So the king and the kingdom had to surrender that part. And the Watoro started building.
Politics started by farmers of Uganda. Politics of price, because we were undermined. We dig your cotton, the price is Indian. Musazi decided to form a politics against that, so that your money, your tea, your what was not taken at the price the buyer wants. This is how we gradually came to politics.
In 1957, the British called him a demagogue, a man called Augustine Camia, who said, we're going to boycott all these shops of Indians and things which are made by Europeans and just be ourselves. And he had such a huge following that there was a real commotion. The British had time putting down that boycott. They called it the movement, Camia's movement. And the idea was that the Africans should get into business too. And indeed, I think to sort of attend to that, the British then allowed Africans into the cabinet. They allowed 3 Africans. One was called Mongonya, who came from Munyoro, became the Minister of Lands. There was one called Apollo Chironde, who was the Minister for Social Services, that is Education and Health. And then Professor Lay, who was the Minister of Trade and Industry. And that is when they built the small shops, which nowadays I think they might be pulling it down around the old bus park. At the same time, some 3 shops opposite, near where Queen Bank sits now, generally speaking, opposite City Square, they singled out some 3 shops and gave them to Africans. One was called Mukubira and Sons, and the other one was called Kayondo and Brothers, who made and sold shoes. Then there was Kabali Busega, which was also a general merchandise shop. Those were on the Kampala Road, the first ones on the Kampala Road, belonging to Africans.
Obote was greatly influenced by Nyerere and the leaders of the socialism. To start with Nehru, Nkrumah, Nasser, Sukarno, Tito, and subsequently Nyerere, who introduced socialism. Their thinking ideology was to have greatest good for the greatest number of people. These were the slogans in those days. And the day he introduced Government Charter, Member of Parliament, I was there in that meeting. And after it was declared Government Charter, it was coming out, people heard the shots. In fact, Obote was shot, and nobody knew whether he was alive or whether he was dead, And people said there was another coup. So everybody rushed. And all those chairs, it became like a mountain of chairs, because people pushing chairs, one going on the top of the other. And the band with the trumpets, they were holding in front of their face, they thought bullets might hit them. And one of them came and knocked me down on the floor.
Secondly, Common Man's Charter was advocating for a political system which made government to own businesses instead of taxing the businessman. It was a mild system of communism, socialism, sort of. So it was a reform, and that was in 1969.
President of Tanzania, Nyerere, was a friend of Kenyatta. Not this Kenyatta. So at the time of their independence, Nyerere passionately believed in putting the economy in the hands of the people. Kenyatta inherited an economy that had mainly investors that were from Europe. So to him, he felt, let them continue, because my people don't yet have the capacities to handle. How will the Africans benefit? We shall tax them and bring the money to the Africans, and they learn the trade. The Tanzanian elder man said, there's too much, they are taking a lot of our money. I'm doing it now. Kenyatta said, I'm not doing it. I'm waiting, let us wait. So they said, okay, both of us have got good ideas. Let us agree to disagree. And let everybody do what he feels is best for his country. So the Tanzanians did that, the Kenyans did that. But after 10 years, the difference was very visible.
Obote feared that all the Sanders-trained officers during the British time might be politically more ambitious, and they might want to take over, have a coup, because there were so many coups on continent of Africa at that time. Normally army was taking over. So he feared that. That's why he scattered all these Sanders officers, from the army. They gave them civil jobs, into parastatal, etc., etc. And Amin, who was very popular with the army, they promoted him. And in my opinion, either British and Americans didn't want that to happen, particularly the British, because they had a large stake in Kenya, and they didn't want Kenya to be surrounded by so many socialistic states around them. In fact, they encouraged. There were Israelis, which were special commandos training the, as you know, all presidents have special commandos, for the protection of the president. And Amin was in charge of that. When Obote went to Commonwealth Conference in Singapore, the Israelis had planned it earlier. They would take over, or ask Amin to take over.